Secretary, given the holistic approach that's required of the new urban agenda, what are some of the key first points that we could use to begin addressing it and achieving sustainable urban development?
Number one, I would say, is to take an issue like resilience and combating climate change. Uh, i- Now that our international accords are in place, and build on that work. And the United States intends to lead by example. There were mayors at COP21, there are mayors who are here at Habitat 3, and now they're going to take that back to their cities and figure out how can they invest in energy efficiency, how can they embrace renewables, how can they encourage development that is more sustainable, how can they invest in infrastructure that enhances resilience the next time there's a natural disaster or heavy storm. So we can lead by example and do that in many different ways that local elected officials are in charge of doing every day: infrastructure, housing, transportation.
Secretary, picking up on the issue of mayors and mayoral involvement in the rollout of the new urban agenda, where is it best for subnational or local government to intervene? Where is it best for national government to intervene? And where is it best a combination of the three?
Well, the fact is that around the world there are different models, and there certainly are some nations that are almost completely top down. There are others that are fairly bottom up, and I would have to say that the United States, throughout its history and including today, is a nation that generally takes its lead from local communities and states. And so some of the most exciting work that we're doing, for instance, that strikes at the heart of improving resilience, improving opportunity, reducing inequality, is working with local communities, local cities, and the suburbs that are surrounding them in something called the Prosperity Playbook. And we're challenging 5 regions across the United States to come up with a blueprint for how they can enhance housing opportunity and economic opportunity within their entire region, and do it in a way that makes sense for them, but that also might be replicable to other regions in the United States. And we're going to unveil that in November at a National League of Cities conference in Pittsburgh. We think that's one thing that HUD is doing as the national partner with our local partners, but again, letting those local communities come up with the blueprint and their aspirations and how they're going to connect the dots, and then investing in them.
What are some of the ways in which we could combine urban development and private companies to create positive urban change?
Well, a good example is something that we launched in July of 2015 called Connect Home. And Connect Home is a public-private, nonprofit partnership. The idea here is that the vast majority of residents living in public housing do not have internet access. We know that today internet access is no longer a luxury, it's really a necessity. It's a tool that people need to compete in the 21st century global economy. So ISPs, or internet service providers, from Google Fiber to Sprint to AT&T have agreed, either for free or very low cost, to connect residents of public housing, especially families that have young children. That's an example of the private sector stepping up and engaging with the public sector, with those housing authorities at the local level, to provide greater opportunity for people that otherwise would not be able to afford it. In this case, an internet connection. And the result of that will be that more young people will do better in school, more low-income young people will close the homework gap, they're more likely to graduate from high school, and more likely to go on and achieve their dreams.
What are some of the innovation-related initiatives that could be used to connect private companies with urban development in the United States to create positive change?
There are a whole host of things on the ground, and I saw this as mayor in San Antonio as well, that are happening. One good example that we see happening out there is something called a rental assistance demonstration initiative, or RAD. The idea behind RAD was that we have a public housing stock that is about 1.1 million units, but we have over $25 billion of backlog in terms of repair needs and renovation needs. RAD was about partnering with the private sector to make renovations where they're needed, and then to use Section 8 voucher money to basically allow residents to live in those renovated units and to allow for a reasonable profit so that the private sector can do what it does and create more housing opportunity. That's an example in the built environment of something that we are doing to create greater housing affordability and opportunity. Another is something that we call the Better Buildings Challenge. The idea here is that we've challenged the owners of multifamily properties to agree to reduce their energy consumption by 20% over the next decade. And so far, we've had about 400 partners. Some of them own many different multifamily properties. We've had 400 partners sign up across the nation to do that. And it is tremendous the impact that we can make if multifamily properties become more energy efficient.
Across Europe and in the United States, we've seen interest in alternative models of housing, such as co-ops or even micro-apartments. What potential do you think these alternative models might have in future?
I think they have a lot of potential. Some communities embrace them more quickly or more fervently than others. A lot of it, again, starts at the local level because it has to do with is a certain type of construction or a certain type of unit allowable under a planning or zoning code. But from HUD's perspective, we actually encourage innovation. And we applaud communities, whether it's the small house movement or other types of housing that oftentimes saves space, is more energy efficient, is more affordable, very significant, that's very important, is more affordable to Americans. We encourage that. And a lot of the funding that is provided by Home and CDBG is fairly flexible for folks to be able to innovate.
The provision of affordable housing in the new urban agenda is understood as a primary force to reduce poverty and inequality. How can we move forward and address this issue?
You're right. We have a rental affordability crisis right now. The rents have been going up tremendously, not just in the usual suspect cities like San Francisco and Boston and New York that people think of as expensive, but also in smaller communities all over the country. And so I believe that whether it's at the local level or at the federal level, that we have a common interest in making affordable housing, creating more affordable housing units and making housing more affordable and investing more in it. And so, as we implement the new urban agenda, part of that is the realization that it's going to take more resources for affordable housing, and working together with Congress and with advocates out there, hopefully to make that happen.
Thank you very much, Secretary.